So when it comes to managing money, we all know that there are a bunch of factors that go into play when it comes to how someone manages their money, right? You got psychological factors, economic factors, behavioral factors, right? The list goes on, right? It would take forever for me to really like break all that down. And obviously, for the sake of time, I'm not going to do that. I want to make sure I keep this video nice and short. Maybe when I start doing lives on this channel, I'll probably like go into more detail. But for the sake of time, I'm gonna try to keep this as short as possible. I'm gonna just try to break down each factor very quickly, and because it's important, right? You need to understand, like when it comes to how people manage money, like understanding these is important. So let's go with the first factor, right? Psychological, and the first psychological factor is like instant gratification, right? People have this mentality like, all right, you could die tomorrow, so why you can die tomorrow and you can't take your money with you, right? Like you hear a lot of people talk that way, and that's very short-term thinking, right? Because of course, yes, we all know that we can die tomorrow, so you want to make sure you experience life to the fullest as much as you can, but you could also live till your 70s and 80s, and you want to make sure you're planning for that, right? But so many people have this idea that just you could tomorrow's not guaranteed, so you want to make sure you want to experience each day like it's your last. And of course, yes, you want to make sure you can do that, but you also want to plan for retirement, plan for the time that you might be in your 70s and 80s, and you want to make sure you're doing that. And a lot of people don't do that, right? There's a lot of people that just do not plan for retirement, don't think that they'll ever retire. They think they'll be working till they die. And of course, we understand why, but a lot of people have this instant gratification mentality, and that contributes to how they manage their money. Another one is emotional spending, right? A lot of people are stressed out. A lot of people are depressed. So, and what does spending do? It makes people feel better, right? It gives you that little dopamine drip, right? Every time you buy something, it makes you feel good. We all know it doesn't last, but we understand that this contributes to people spending more because they need to feel good based on what they're feeling at the moment. So we understand emotional spending is also a factor when it comes to that. Also, social pressure. We know that people like to keep up with the Joneses, right? They see their neighbor. They got the nice car, they got the swimming pool, they got the nice stuff in their home, and they're always trying to keep up with that next person. And we all understand how that can put people into a strenuous financial situation. So that's the psychological stuff. And then you also have financial literacy. People, when it comes to managing your money, it comes down to basic math. Just like when it comes to managing your diet, it all comes down to math, right? Calories in, calories out. When it comes to your finances, money in, money out. So if you just understand that it comes down to simple math, then all it takes is just putting that on a spreadsheet. All right, say how much money's coming in. And then when it comes to your expenses, list down all your expenses, total that up, and you want to make sure whatever your expenses are is less than obviously what the money's coming in. But a lot of people don't do that, of course, right? They don't put that spreadsheet, they don't put it out in front of them and know what's coming in, what their finances look like. All they know is that boom, they got money in the bank account, and they're gonna spend whatever's in there, right? And based on whatever's left, that's how much they're gonna spend. And if you factor in the credit cards, obviously that makes things work. But if you're someone that's not understanding the budgeting, your saving, managing your money, poor planning, all this contributes to how you manage money in the future. And for a lot of people, financial literacy, obviously, of course, as we know, is something a lot of people struggle with, and it leads to a lot of poor habits. Now let's go to economic factors. We all understand economic factors when we're talking about cost of living, inflation. Things are much more expensive. And for a lot of people, they're using this as an excuse for why they're struggling and living paycheck to paycheck. So I checked online, right? And then what is it? So I checked like back in 2019. And I was like, all right, so what is the percentage of Americans living paycheck to paycheck back in 2019? And based on it says a Modern Wealth Index survey, it was at 59%. Which is high, right? That's before inflation got where it was, before the pandemic. 59% of Americans were living paycheck to paycheck. So even before that, you can't really use excuse as the economy as a reason why you're struggling. We understand that it accelerated your struggles and made your struggles even worse. But even before then, it was at 59%. I think today, what they said, as of May 30th, 2024. MarketWatch reported that over 66% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So it went from 59 to 66. Not a huge jump, right? People are still struggling, and the fact that it's that high is that many people are struggling is crazy. That's not good for the economy, right? That many people shouldn't be struggling. It's not good for that majority of the Americans to be struggling, living paycheck to paycheck. But like I said, it's a result of a lot of things, just bad money management. There's a lot of factors that we just talked about. But we understand when it comes to inflation, all inflation did was just accelerate the fact that people were struggling financially, that people were putting things on credit cards, living paycheck to paycheck, but they were able to get by because, it wasn't as bad. But when you factor in inflation and you keep those same spending habits, all it did was that everything that you were buying before, now it costs 2, 3, 4, 5 times more, and now it just accelerated the fact that you're in debt more. The more debt that you accumulated, it accelerated your poor spending habits, and you were living you were struggling even more and living paycheck to paycheck. Your habits got even worse, and for a lot of people, it's really just making sure that you got the good habits, right? People have poor spending habits, and when you're reaching a situation where the economy is doing bad, right? You can't keep spending the same way you do, right? When the economy is doing good and you're probably eating out, you're probably going to the movies, you're shopping, and then when inflation hits and the economy's getting bad, you got to start doing the math and say, all right, we got to cut some things out, right? We got to tighten the belt. Maybe we can't go to eat out as much as we want. Maybe we can't go out to movies, but we got to do less shopping, right? You got to start cutting the expenses, because unless your income is increasing at an exponential rate, you got to start saying, you know what, we got to start reducing the expenses. That's just simple under economics, right? You have to do that. And for a lot of people, they're not doing that. They're maintaining that same spending habits, and they're finding themselves, struggling when it comes to the money. Now, another thing is behavior, right? The behavioral factor when it comes to how they manage money. I know one thing. I remember back in the days when I had, when I was in debt, credit card debt. I remember when I took on like a personal loan. I said to myself, you know what? I'll pay this back. I'll pay this off in like a year, right? So I took on that debt and said, you know what? In a year, I'll pay this off, so I'm not worried. So what happened? I quit my job and I wasn't able to pay these things back. And eventually that debt accumulated, and I found myself with $30,000 of credit card debt and personal debt. And for a lot of people, they have this optimistic future about their earnings and their ability to pay debt. So they say, you know what? I'll put this trip on a credit card and I'll pay this back as long as I got my job. But what happens? Emergencies happen, right? Things come up, right? And you find yourself like, a year later, all right, you didn't pay off that debt. You have more debt on top of that, and you see that debt snowballing, making your financial situation even worse. And this is what a lot of people do. They have this overly optimistic expectations about their future earnings and their ability to pay debt. And a lot of people have this. Like I've experienced it myself, and I know that firsthand. So people have to do a better job and understand that and not only that, but have you ever heard someone say this as well? They're making a purchase, and there's like, I'm just going to put it on this credit card, and it has 0% APR for the next 24 months. Right? You think these credit cards are stupid? They understand that. They'll give you the 0% APR for now, but they understand people have poor spending habits and they're bad with money, and they'll know maybe initially they won't make the money, but in the future they're going to make a lot more money. They do this on purpose because they understand that the spending habits of humans. And a lot of people do that all the time. They say, I'm going to put on this 0% APR and I won't have to pay interest on it, but then they forget and they end up paying more in the future. And a lot of people do that as well. And then finally, you got lifestyle choices, right? That's another factor that people do. Like people end up making more money, and what also happens, they tend to spend more money. Their expenses increase along with their income, right? They call that lifestyle creep. And people get caught in this all the time. People do this all the time. It's like, oh man, if I just made another $1,000, $2,000, I can manage my finances better. They get that increase in pay. What goes up? They increase their expenses by another $1,000, $2,000, and then they find themselves in the same position. I even hear people talk about, man, I'm making more money than I've ever made, and I'm still broke. That's just math. Like, it's obvious why you're broke, right? You got that lifestyle creep. You're increasing your expenses along with your income, and that never works. So there's like I said, there's a lot of factors that a lot of people go into, and that causes people to continue to spend more than they make. right? Because like I said, it's just simple math, right? You have to have you got to put that right in front of you. You got to put your finances right in front of you. Whatever's coming in, whatever's going out, put that in front of you, and then make changes there. And if you're doing all that, you've cut out the expenses to the max. Then it gets to a point where you say, you know what? All right, I got to increase my income. I have an income problem. Right? Do I need a second job? Do I need to start a business? What do I need to do? I need to do whatever I can to make more money. And for a lot of people, they struggle with that, and they just don't get that concept. And if more people understood that when it comes to just their finances, just basic math, and had more discipline, then you would see a lot of people in better financial situations. So those are my thoughts. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Make sure to leave a comment down below, hit the like button, share, and if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe. Right? So you guys take care. Have a good one. Later.